How's this for a phrase? Unapologetic profit. I love this. I don't even know what it really means, but I love the idea of this phrase. It turns out that some entrepreneurs, sometimes female, maybe often female entrepreneurs, have a challenge in terms of focusing on what they want, what they deserve, and charging for it. So we're going to talk about this with Vanessa Bowen. She is founder of Mintworthy, and she joins us now to talk about how she is helping entrepreneurs build wealth. Hello, Vanessa.
Hello, Bruce. Thanks for having me.
Unapologetic profit. Where did you even get this idea from?
Say probably a bit for myself, but also just in the work I've been doing with a lot of my clients who are female entrepreneurs. When it comes to money in general, it's a sticky topic for women. We've got a lot of baggage, a lot of money stories, but especially when it comes to building our businesses, what I've seen is that, we kind of feel guilty when we're making money, but then we say we want to create a big impact, but then we don't want to make the money. Like you can't have it both ways. And so that phrase was really just almost like this permission slip for women to raise their hands and say, you know what? I do want to build my business and I do want to build this business and it has a heck ton of money and I'm going to be unapologetic about it because
Yeah.
the more money we have as women inside of our businesses, the greater impact we can create, the greater wealth we can also create for our future generations. And so it's really just this phrase to empower women to say, it's okay to want more money, to create more money, and to
Yeah.
do more good with that money.
And I will say, we talked about entrepreneurship on the show a bazillion times. And one of the things that is common, regardless of demographic, is an obsession about revenue and almost an indifference or a lack of attention to profit.
Yeah.
You're an accountant by background. Why is profit so important for entrepreneurs?
It's everything. And I really feel that, especially society these days, we've kind of been brainwashed to think that revenue is that ultimate marker of success. But your profit really tells you if you have a business or if you're just building a hobby with a sexy name. Like there's a big difference.
Right.
And so your profit is really telling you the health of your business. It's actually saying, do you have enough money to pay yourself what you want, to create the lifestyle you desired inside of your business? Do you have enough money to build the wealth outside of your business? Whether that's generational wealth, properties, travel, it doesn't matter, but it begins with your profit. And I think we've kind of been thought to believe it begins with your revenue, but it's like, no, you can have a sexy revenue business and zero profit, and that is not a business.
How do you help your clients think through where on the continuum they authentically are? Because I know lots of people, regardless of gender, who have a business or a side hustle, and it really is more about impact, it's more about fun, it's more about the hobby, and they're less concerned about that profit number. Other entrepreneurs are exceedingly concerned about profit because there's no other way to pay the mortgage other than to put money into that bank account. How do you help individuals illuminate what resonates for them?
Yeah, it's such a great question because you're right. Like everyone can have a different goal or focus for their business. But at the end of the day, I feel like we create businesses because we want to create some sort of change, some sort of impact. And in the world that we live in today, we can't create that impact without money. Like literally, we can't. I mean, I don't know if someone else can, but I don't think I can.
Mm.
And so, regardless of what the goal is or what the focus is, we need that money. Whether even if your business is like a hobby or something that you just pour your soul into, if you want to keep pouring your soul into it, or if you want to keep creating that impact, you still need the money to do that, and that is your profit. And so, I really like to understand where my clients are in that mindset and on that journey because that will make and break. If it is just a hobby, maybe our profit targets aren't ridiculous, but they're still at that level that allows you to continue to sustain
Mm.
the hobby or sustain the
Mm.
business. And if you're on the other side, then we go aggressive with those profit targets, but
Yeah.
really balancing what makes sense for the person.
Where did this click for you? Were you someone who came out of the womb being unapologetic about profit, or was this a hard earned lesson? Because I know you've been at the entrepreneurial game for a while.
Oh, it was such a hard-earned lesson. Oh my gosh. I remember when like everything for me when I started my business was hitting the six figures. That was the goal. And then when I first hit six figures in revenue, I thought I had made it. I was like, I got this until I ended the year and I really took into account like what was I actually able to do financially? Was I able to invest in the things that I wanted to? Was I able to take the vacations at the level that I wanted to? And I realized no, like I still felt broke, even with making six figures in revenue. And that's when it hit me. I was like, oh, revenue is not the goal. It's actually the profit. Like I need a minimum of six figures in profit to
Mm.
live the lifestyle that I desire to provide for my family. And so that's when it first hit me. And then in working with my clients and seeing kind of that disconnect with them with the revenue versus the profit numbers and seeing them struggle to take their family on vacations or having to remortgage their home twice, I was like, okay, this is a gap and we need to be talking about this gap and this
Mm.
gap needs to be fixed.
What was the catalyst for your personal insight? Was it Brene Brown? Was it a YouTube video? Was it journaling? What was it? Or am I oversimplifying that it was a lightning bolt and it was actually years and years of, scratching your fingernails that it finally came to fruition for you, the insight?
Think it was maybe a little bit of years of just kind of I say scratching the fingers, but always just having this mindset, right? Of like, this is the goal, this is the goal, the revenue is the goal. And then realizing that it actually didn't provide the freedom or the peace that I wanted. And that's when it really like hit home. And then when I realized I wasn't the only one.
Mm.
And it's funny too, when I started to shift into this focus on profit, my team and I, we did a lot of research. And there's actually not a lot of research on entrepreneurship and profit. And that's when I really realized, okay, it's not just a Vanessa thing. Like, this
Mm.
is an entrepreneurial like universe thing that we really need to start talking about and really need to start focusing on.
So let's say I got to eavesdrop on a coaching conversation you had with a client. What are some of the things that you would ask them to help them illuminate what this particular issue might look like or sound like for them? How do you get to the essence of it?
Yeah. So first we really talk about what's their mindset around revenue and what's their mindset around profit. And I'll just quickly tell you there's one client of mine and she literally said, she's like, Vanessa, I just want to see that shiny revenue number. I don't want to see my profit number because that actually tells me the truth of how I'm actually doing. When I'm looking at the revenue, I feel successful. When I look at the profit and it's not so successful, I feel like a failure. I feel like I'm not actually building this business. And so we really start off with that of like what's that mindset around revenue and profit, because I always say this, like revenue makes you look wealthy, but profit actually makes you wealthy. And it's easy to look wealthy, but we're trying to be wealthy. And so we start with that mindset shift. But then the other thing is I like to actually go through a profit leak audit with them. So we look at where are they leaking inside of their profit? Is it their pricing? Is it their cost? Like maybe they're just overextending in their cost. Is it their offer suite, like their revenue model? Maybe they're actually creating these offers that are draining money from their business. I had that happen to a client. One of her offers was draining like 30K from the business every year, but we're not seeing that because we're just looking at sexy revenue. We're not actually digging into the profit. So we go through a bit of a profit audit to see where the holes are, and then we start to plug those holes.
Right. It sounds like the intersection of head and heart.
Yeah.
Which of the two is the harder piece in your view?
It's definitely the head, definitely the mindset piece. Like, we talked about this before, but mindset is everything when it comes to our money. Especially as entrepreneurs, we want to make more money, but we don't actually take the time to look at our relationship with money, our mindset around money, how we think, how we feel about money. And that's always a section that we kind of stay away from and we don't really talk about. And so sometimes for my clients, it's a new beginning of actually thinking about what do I think about when it comes to money. And so I find like that's always like the hardest part because you can teach the strategy, you can implement the strategy, but if you're implementing and you're still not feeling that alignment with money, it's all on the heart, the mindset piece of it.
Mm. I don't know the stat empirically. I just know it's really, really high. And that is most new businesses fail. So you
Yeah.
do all this work, you try all the things. Not every business is going to be successful. What is the essence of a decision whether to continue plodding on or
Mm.
to fish and cut bait?
Yeah, that's such a great one. And I think it does depend on like what I would say, what does your revenue model look like? If you have a revenue model that is positioned correctly, it is profitable, but it's not working. then maybe that is the sign. But if your revenue model is broken to begin with, that's just a sign that you just have a broken business that can be fixed and it can be profitable potentially. But yeah, you have to look at like how are you generating the revenue? How are you generating the profit? Do your marketing efforts align? If you've exhausted all of that and you've ticked all the boxes and it's still not working, then maybe it's just not the right season. It's not the right, demand for the business, and that's the time to shut it down. But if you haven't actually checked all the boxes, it's still some time that you can fix things.
Hmm. There is a simplicity to the profit motive that for a lot of entrepreneurs is really, really motivating. And for other entrepreneurs, and I sense you're one of them, it's more nuanced than that. It's more complicated than that. Sure, you want to make all the money, but you also want to have the impact. How do
Yes.
you bring the kind of tough love to the conversations for people, entrepreneurs who really, really, really do want to have an impact?
Yeah, I think it really is how much of an impact do you want to create? We say we want to create an impact, but do you really? And what does that look like? And really getting real with that. A lot of the times we say we want to make the impact, but we haven't actually quantified that. Like, is that one person? Because if your business is impacting one person, you're good. You can pack up shop right
Right.
now. But like, what is that really? And when my clients get real with that, then we can create the numbers and the strategy behind
Mm.
that. But I think that's where we fall short. We say, yeah, I want to build an impact, I want to create impact, but you haven't actually defined what that is for you. And when you get clarity on that, then it makes sense the strategy, the numbers, the profit, then it actually does align with how you're building the business, how you're running the business, how you're operating the business.
Really interesting. Vanessa, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Bruce.
Vanessa Bowen with Mintworthy. She was here to talk to us about this idea of unapologetic profit. And yes, her focus is female entrepreneurs, but I think a lot of entrepreneurs could take a lot away from what she's talking about.